Hi, this is Jonathan Wood from Soft Circuits, and this lesson is on developing an MFC application. And we're going to start by creating a new project. In this dialog, I have three MFC project types. MFC DLL and MFC ActiveX Control are both for writing components. ActiveX controls are accessed through COM. And an MFC application which we're going to create, and we are going to call it dots, and Visual Studio automatically selected a directory for us which we will use. And this dialog allows us to set our project settings. We can just click finish if we want everything as it is, or we can go through and make some changes. There are three basic application types. A single document, or SDI, single document interface, is for applications that just have one window and your application is in that window. Multiple documents, for an MDI, or multiple document interface, is for a main window that has smaller windows, which allows you to open multiple documents at once. And then there's a dialogue-based applications, which are just basically a dialogue, and they're for simpler applications. And we're going to make this an MDI. And we also have some other options. One is we can use MFC as a shared DLL or as a static library. And the main difference between those is when we use a DLL, our application will compile smaller because it won't include MFC, but we'll have to make sure that the MFC DLLs are available in order for it to run. In contrast, MFC in a static library will compile MFC into our application, making the application larger, but the application will run without any other DLLs for MFC. We're going to go through here and accept some of these defaults. This allows us to specify our file extension for an application, and I'm going to enter dots, and we won't be using database support. Here's some other options for our window styles and so forth, and additional options. You can see that MFC is going to give us printing and print preview, and things like that with no coding. And so I'll click finish and go ahead and generate the application. And over here on the right, you'll notice I have a Solution Explorer window, and that shows all the source files that have been created so far. And those are the files that MFC has created for me. And there's also a class view, and that shows you all the classes in your application. And you can see it'll expand, and it'll even show base types that your class is derived from. And we also have a resource view, which allows us to control application resources such as dialogues, icons, menus, and items like that. Now, we actually have a running application now, and I'm going to go ahead and build it and run it. It won't do much, of course, but MFC has given us quite a bit of functionality. As you can see, it is in a multiple document interface. We can create a couple of windows, and they all run in the main application. We can maximize it. So we have a running application, and the key now is to add custom functionality for our specific application. And if we go to class view, we're going to look at our mostly we're going to be working with our view class, and what that is, the role that it plays, it basically represents the window for this particular view of a document. And Now we can override behavior of that existing view class in a couple of ways. First of all, there are overrides, and basically that's just a C++ concept where we're taking virtual methods and we're overriding their functionality as you would in normal C++ programming. As you can see, there's on print. These are some of the standard methods already defined that we can override. There's also events, and this is more handling of menu selections and standard commands within the MFC frameworks. Now, Windows supports many different types of messages, and overrides don't really work for that, because that would mean that the base class would have to define methods for all of those all possible messages. And so instead of defining all those, it actually has a separate mechanism for handling messages. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a handler for the left button down. Let me expand that a bit. And so we'll go to that message, and we're going to add L button down, left button down. Now notice in the class view that we have the view selected, so that's the class that we're going to add this method to. And we actually have a couple of choices where we could add that, but we'll just keep that for our view class. So I'm going to click that. So this is a method now that gets called when the left button is clicked in the view window. Now, to add some functionality here, I'm going to add a variable to our view class, and what I'm going to add using the MFC, one of the MFC collection classes, I'm going to add using the array template. We're going to add an array of point objects, and we're going to call it m_points, the m standing for member because it's a member variable. And we'll click that, and you'll see one of the arguments to the left button down method is a point object. And what we're going to do is we're going to use our collection and use the add method, and we're going to just add that point. So what we're doing is, as each click occurs in the window, we're going to add that location to our list, and we're also going to draw it on the screen. So we could just draw it right here, but instead of doing that, we're going to have it drawn in a common place where we can also redraw the screen when our windows gets covered and then uncovered. And so all we really want to do here is just force the screen to be redrawn, and we'll do that by calling invalidate, which invalidates the current window. Now, earlier we added this handler for the message in here, and the way that MFC adds that is called a message map, and that's defined here with macros. It begins here and ends here, and you can see a few were added by when the wizards created the project for print, printing directly, and print preview. And then when we added the handler for the left button down, you can see that's also added a macro here, and that's what connects our method to the actual Windows message. And there will come times when you can edit this window or this the message map directly, but for now we can just use the wizards to do that for us. So next, we're going to draw. We want to be able to draw those dots that we're adding, and that's handled in our onDraw event or method. and that's already defined for us, so all we need to do is add code for that. So we're going to add that. Now, one thing that is an argument to the onDraw method is pointed to a device context object, and that's corresponds to a Windows DC device context, and we use that for our drawing. So I'm going to draw a dot or a circle for each point, and that is done through the ellipse method. And we'll use the coordinates of our point. So this code just loops through that collection of points and draws a circle at each location. So now let's go ahead and run that and try that out. And we couldn't see any points, so I just had a little syntax error here. And now let's go ahead and run it again. And now we get a little circle wherever we click the mouse. And if we hide the window and then restore it, all those dots are redrawn because restoring the window calls our onDraw method. Okay, now to add some more functionality, it might be nice if we can modify the size of the dots that are drawn. So let's add a variable to control that to the same class, the view class, and it'll be an integer, and we'll call it mn.size. And we'll initialize it in our constructor. And it's already initialized here, and we'll initialize it to 10. Now in actuality, that's probably not the best place to do it because you can have multiple views during an application, and they could all have different dot sizes, so that might be something to consider, but we're not going to worry about that here. And we're going to modify our drawing code so that it uses that variable. So and make sure that still works. Okay, so now we have a variable that determines the size of the dots. So in order to change those, we'll need a dialog. So we go to the resource view and dialogs, and we can just go insert dialog, and we will add a static text to label our control, and we'll call that dot size. And then we'll add a edit control where the user can enter that size. We also need to set the tab order. The controls that were already there for is the OK and cancel button should come last because we want the focus to go to our controls. So We just click those in order. And that's that. Now we want to give our dialog an ID that means something. And it'll be IDD dot size. Now we want to create a class for our dialog and associate that with the dialog template. So the wizard will do that. We can just do add class. By default, we're deriving from the C dialog class, and we'll give our class a name. We'll call it C dot size dialog, and we can change the name of the files used to store that, but that looks okay. And the wizards have created that class for us and associated with that dialog. Now we want to now associate a variable with the this edit control that's going to specify the dot size. So we can click on that control and click add variable. Now we've got a couple of options here. This is a control variable because it's associated with that control, and there are two types or categories. One is a control, which is it's when you want to access the control itself to make changes to it, and that provides a convenient way to do that. And the other way is a value, which is associated with a value of a control, and that's what we want here. But before I do that, let me change the ID of the control. Let's call it dot size, and then we'll go back in there, and we're going to make this a value control. And you can see that the type is defaulted to a string because it's usually text that you enter into an edit control. But we actually want an integer for that size, and MFC will handle that for us automatically. We will create a name for the variable, and we can also specify a minimum and maximum value. So let's do a minimum of 4 and a maximum of 20, and accept that. Now in our view, we want to be able to access that dialog. So we need to include our header file that we just created. And we're also going to add a menu command that invokes that that dialog. So we can go to our resources here, and we have two menus. Now the main frame is the menu that appears in an MDI application when there are no child windows created, and this one here is specific to our document. So this is the one that appears when the view is selected. So we'll go ahead and bring that up, and we're going to go here under the edit menu, and we're going to make a separator to separate this new command, and we're going to put dot size, and 3 dots usually means that the command is not executed right away. Instead it brings up a dialog or something to before the command is completed. And so we're going to add an event handler to that command we just added, and we want to add it to our view like the other methods we added. And there we go. And now we're going to declare an instance of the dialog. And we want to initialize that variable so that it will show the current dot size value. So there it is, dot size, and we're going to set that to our views variable of the same name, and then we're going to call the dialog the doModal method is the one that displays the dialog modally. And if it returns ID OK, that means the user clicked OK. And if they don't do that, we're not going to do anything else. But if they do that, then we're going to go ahead and update our variable. And we're also going to redraw the screen so that it takes immediate effect. And so we'll call invalidate again. And now let's go ahead and run it. So we have our dots like that that appear. We go to edit, dot size. We can see they're 10. And we can enter, let's enter 50. And we see that that maximum range we entered is going to be enforced, so we can't enter that. So let's go ahead with 20. And we see immediately that the dots are larger, and any new dots we create are going to be larger as well.